On this channel, we believed, all along, that there was more than one perp in the King Road house. And more than one weapon. The belief in multiple killers is reflected in almost all of the channel videos. But my second weapon theory is based on the coroner's description of wounds. As we know, Maddie and Kaylee's wounds were different. And the wounds correspond to the different capabilities between the two weapons. And we'll show how it relates directly to a hair-raising new theory we developed while listening again to the ring cam audio. You will see how our second weapon theory fits neatly in the hands of one of the Sicko killers who lingered behind upstairs in the room with the girls. According to Mr. Goncalves, the coroner described the wounds that she saw as, quote, big open gouges or tears. She also said, quote, I don't think stabs is the right word. It was like tears. Like, this was a strong weapon. Not like a stab. This was not something where you were going to call 911. They were not going to slowly bleed out. The tiger claw is the karambit nickname. Tigers are known to disembowel their prey with their claws. The karambit can also gouge, claw, rip, tear, slice, pull, and leave gaping wounds, like a tiger's claw. The karambit requires less physical exertion than a Kabar, and can cause maximum damage in just a few seconds. The karambit has a built-in leverage in its curved design that can cause gape or gouge-type wounds, with very little physical exertion. The karambit ring or hole is a safety mechanism that prevents slippage and enables you to change the position of the grip, without dropping the weapon. Gouge or gape wounds caused by a karambit result in maximum loss of vital fluids. And the clawing effect can displace tendons, ligaments, and muscle tissue, as well as damage organs. A Kabar can stab or slice. But unlike a karambit, a Kabar is incapable of clawing, tearing, and pulling. And a Kabar will not leave a gouging or gaping wound. If the Kabar stab wounds are non-fatal, people can often survive if 911 is called in a timely manner. This is due to the tamponade effect. The tamponade effect occurs when puncture and stab-type wounds appear to close up, due to the swelling of the tissue, and coagulation and clotting of the blood because of the close proximity of the wound edges. The tamponade effect is not possible on gouge, gaping, and tearing wounds caused by a karambit. The tip of the Kabar blade is known to break off during its use on just one single victim. This means that the probability of a Kabar blade tip breaking off during its use on 4 different victims is about 99.9%. So, it's just about guaranteed that the Kabar blade tip would have broken off under those circumstances. Yet, no broken blade tip was recovered at the crime scene, as far as we know. The repeated thrusting of the Kabar to produce multiple stabbings on just one victim can leave a perpetrator physically exhausted. By the time he reached the 3rd and 4th person, he would likely be depleted of energy and would likely be overcome by resistance. In conclusion, a Kabar is incapable of causing ripping or tearing wounds with big open gouges, as described by the coroner. But the karambit is capable of causing such wounds in only a few seconds' time. Also, people often survive non-lethal Kabar stab wounds if 911 responds in a timely manner, due to the coagulating tamponade of the stab wound itself, stopping or slowing the loss of vital fluids. The open gouge and tear wounds described by the coroner will result in more blood loss, because in such wounds, a coagulating tamponade is not possible. In addition, Kabar blade tips have a tendency to break off after use on just one single victim. With multiple stab wounds on 4 different victims, the chances of a broken Kabar tip is nearly 100%. Yet, no broken blade tip was found as far as we know. Because of the different types of wounds suffered by Maddie and Kaylee, we are certain that there was a second weapon capable of causing the particular types of wounds described by the coroner. All evidence indicates that the second weapon was a karambit. So, she describes the wounds on one of the girls as tears and deep gouges, such that a victim would not slowly bleed out. In other words, the wounds on one of the girls was not slice or stab wounds that a Kabar would cause. This is why we believe a karambit was the second knife at the scene. In an upcoming hearing, it's been reported that the defense team will present expert witness testimony on why they also believe that a second knife was used at the Queen Road house. We focused on that conversation Xana was having with one of the killers outside her door. But we know the killers went upstairs first. And, after hearing some commotion, Xana and Ethan went upstairs to see what was going on. We believe, at first, they thought the noise was coming from the backyard. But, when Xana saw them upstairs, she said, "Oh, they're from here." That's when we hear a male say, "Go get them." This is when one perp chased Xana and Ethan down the stairs. Of course, Xana went first. Then, we believe, Ethan was attacked from behind and incapacitated outside Xana's room in the hallway. This gave Xana the opportunity to lock her bedroom door, which she did. This is why she was able to question one of the killers outside her door, trying to convince her to open it. Perhaps this is when Dylan heard, "It's okay, I'm here to help you." But later, he stopped pretending because there was a loud kick on the door. On the Linda Lane audio, we heard the white car speeding away, as described in the affidavit. The problem is, at that time, we also hear one of the perps continue to talk to Maddie at her bedroom door. After listening to that moan or whimper a few times, we realized that the moan may have come from one of the girls upstairs. Because, after the moan, we can still hear Xana speaking. We believe one perp among them lingered upstairs with a karambit-type weapon while one of the girls was still alive. And we think this one had a fascination for what he was doing more than the others. He took his time admiring the scene. He was more than fascinated, perhaps fixated. Even while the other perps were downstairs. We speculate that the sicko who remained upstairs caused the deeper gouge wounds and tears described by the coroner. Because the wounds were different, they were deliberate and intentional. Like the field processing of a hunter. And this ties together our theory of a karambit knife as a second weapon, with one of the killers inflicting the deep wounds described by the coroner.